I'm going to talk about health game development. My name is Jörg Niesenhaus. I'm from the University of Duisburg-Essen, and we have a game technology competence center since 1.5 years there, which aligns all the activities around game development, game research at our university campus. And yeah, I'm from the computer science, but we have also psychologists, social scientists, and designers, media scientists. So it's a gathering of a lot of different disciplines. And I'm not going to talk too much detail into that. You have websites where you can find more about our activities. We're part of a game development initiative, which gives us contact to a lot of local game development teams, which is very good for us to get, for example, data for research, concerning user experience, and also training games and so on. That's not part of my talk. Part of the talk is about health game development, and we have expertise in game development. We have courses around how to develop a game, which technology to use, and we have several people who are also from the industry teaching at our university. I myself worked about 11 years in the industry for Blue by Ubisoft, then came back to research, so we got some people who already designed games in not in the research context, but in an industry commercial context. So this is a good combination for us and for our students as well, hopefully. And we have a strong field in human-computer interaction, which is focusing on user experience. Sandro in his talk already gave some nice examples how to measure fun, emotions in games, and that's also a focus at our research, and usability engineering, interface design, social psychology, and we have a lot of ongoing cooperations with companies, development companies, but also a lot of research institutions. And yeah, but this talk is about to share some experience as much as is possible in about 30 minutes. And I wrap up some of the influencing factors which I think are important. Sometimes constraining the game development, but sometimes they are helpful, and I will use two case studies to highlight some of the problems and challenges alongside the development. The case studies are already two finished projects, prototypes. They're not commercially available, but we are looking always for having prototype very fast to do our research of the prototypes. The first game is for kids with diabetes, around 10 to 14 years. It's a self-management game. We generated two versions. One which clearly states this is about diabetes, and we want to train your self-management, and one which comes with another cover story where the kids do not know this is about diabetes. So we tested both versions and compared the results. If you're interested in this one, I can hint you to an article we had in the Entertainment Computing Journal last year, where we presented a study which compared both prototype versions. It's a jump and run game, so you might see a little guy here jumping from roof to roof. The game is completely drawn by our students, so all handmade graphics, which cost a lot of time to hammer. That's, the assets are the most time-consuming part of the game development, especially in this case. The second game I choose is also hand-drawn. It's called Paper Ninja, but we have to change the title because there's already one game with the title out there. So this is what the name of the group, and they of the student group who developed the game, and it's about it's a bicycle game. Like you drive down the road and have to deliver newspapers to the house, like Paperboy, an old school game where you throw papers to the households, and this is done with exertion interfaces. We also learned something about exertion games from Sandro earlier this day, and you get a mini ergometer which stands in front of the console, so you have to run the pedals in the same speed of the music, so you can choose your own music or take existing music, and you have to match the speed of the music with the ergometer, so it depends a bit on the speed of the music, how fast you have to drive. And then you have such globe walls, I call it, small interfaces which work similar like the Wii remote interface, which you can make a throw gesture, and then the newspaper will be thrown to the house. Just to give you an idea what the games are about. Yeah, the main question you do ask yourself, or you should ask yourself before starting the game development is, what is your mission? Especially in a serious game with study context, you always have a mission. You want to achieve something, and we already learned there are a lot of different things you want to change the attitude of someone towards something. You have physical therapy, physical fitness games, like the games Sandro talked about earlier. Healthcare with a lot of different topics, medical education, to train, for example, surgical personnel, and so on. So a lot of different purposes you can implement in a game, but you have to be sure what you want to achieve and stay focused. In some of the projects we did ourselves, or we did consulting services for, sometimes there's a problem what you want to achieve. There are a lot of problems, say for example in the area of diabetes, when we first came together with the experts, they told us, okay, you want to achieve this, and we have had to focus with the game, because there's not, it's difficult to have a game which solves all problems of one healthcare situation. So this is a huge challenge for the experts and game designers to come together to have an idea what they want to achieve at the end. And it helps a lot when you think about how to measure this effect. So I put it down the slide to set up methods how to measure this, and we already have examples like questionnaires or psychophysiological measurement methods. So this is also a good idea to have some thoughts about this before you start the development, how to measure the impact of your game, how to measure the success. And this is quite important for us, also as a research institution, to not only develop the game, but show afterwards that it works, that it has an impact on the topic. The target group, in this case 2 children, we are developing a lot of games for children, but not only. We have also a project focusing on senior citizens, or the activation in daily life in the context of ambient assisted living. So it's a research topic of the EU, and this project is also funded by the EU. But mainly we are doing games for children. But I think it's also a thing that will change in the near future, because we already heard in a talk earlier this morning that the group of senior citizens is growing and growing, and I think games will offer a lot of opportunities to aim for a better life of the senior citizens, to help a lot of healthcare issues. And yeah, who's the main target group? It's not only children, but children of a age group. Are there constraints of this health group, of this target group concerning the state of health, for example? Which gaming platforms do the kids, for example, use? What gaming platforms can they access? For example, if they're in the hospital, it's not every platform is available or suitable. And of course, what are preferred genres, art styles from different media, different commercial games. So we also look into commercial games, what do the children like and play the most. So this is also very important when you think about health game design. Is there parental guidance necessary, and so on and so on. So we do a lot of interviews, focus groups at the beginning of the project, where we pitch our ideas to the kids and hopefully get the feedback this is right. But children are very honest. This is always great to talk to children, to present your ideas, because they tell you really quick when your idea is crap, and it's always, we enjoy this most of the time. And of course, if you have mock-ups, early prototypes don't have to be a digital prototype, let's say paper prototyping. We do a lot of stuff with this, so make a paper-based version of our game, go to the children, play with them half an hour, and then get back to the development with all the feedback. This helps also a lot. And like agile development methods you presented earlier, like Scrum helps a lot to get early prototypes. After 2 weeks, another prototype, and go take the prototype back to your target group and test it again and again. So it's very good for your development. Yeah, context. It don't have to be a hospital room, but it makes a lot of difference where you play a game. Are you sitting on on your home, in your home office, in a hospital, a doctor's office. We also made a game which should be played with guidance from a medical person, so this will take place at the office of the doctor. In which situation will the game be played? Alone at home or at the hospital room? Is there any guidance available? We have to place a tutorial, for example, inside, mechanisms where you can access contact to medical personnel, or is there someone attending the play session? So this is also very important, what is the context of the situation where you're playing in. And of course hardware requirements. What do you need? You need an online connection to transfer data, for example, to the PC of the doctor, what's the control setup look like, and so on. And we do often site inspections when it comes to, for example, implementing game in the hospital. We look at what's the hardware look like, how is the situation, are the kids or people lying in the bed, for example, can they get out of the bed, what's their daily situation in the hospital, for example. And we, of course, do interviews with all the nursing staff, doctors, and psychologists. In the context of the two games, Balance was the game for the kids with diabetes. It's interesting, we first thought of giving this everyone to play at home, but we found out that it's much more helpful to have one person with them, especially when they play the version it's not clear that it's about diabetes, because kids are not stupid, they develop, they're very fast in getting to know that this is about diabetes. Don't know when this happens, so it's good when there's a person where you can have a discussion afterwards and have some reflections about the game. So we played this at a hospital office with a psychologist. They have regular dates at the clinic where we did this. We did it with the child hospital in Munich, which they have a huge unit focusing on kids with diabetes, and during the counseling interviews they implemented the play sessions. So we were sure that there's always someone to talk about the game with them. And we had a PC with internet connection, which is fairly normal. The Paper Ninja game, which has to be renamed, will be played as a hospital room in the oncology station in the university campus in Essen. It's a free time activity as a physical activity, because there are a lot of constraints for the kids of getting out, having free time activities, and when we developed the game, it was not focused on this situation, to be honest. We just made a game for physical activity for kids, and the students presented this at a conference, and someone came up and asked if they can implement this at their station. Now we're trying to get this running at the oncology station, which is a bit difficult with the Bluetooth interfaces of the additional hardware, but I think we found a solution last week, so hopefully this will turn out to work soon. Yeah, the team, you always have a good team when developing a game. I'm not going about team roles, and we heard something earlier about this, who was participating in the development of a game, different roles, but which I think it's very important, who is in charge of the project. So who's the client, starts the whole thing, who sets up the game's goals and mechanics. It's from our experience often good to have a good balance between the experts of a certain area, medical personnel, doctors, psychologists, and the game development team, and to have a lot of sessions together, because right in the beginning it's very a lot of foundation for the game mechanics set up, and if then something goes wrong or somebody's not feels completely good with the decisions, then this can shoot down the whole process after. So it's, from our experience, very important to get all people together right from the beginning and talk a lot and discuss a lot, because there are a lot of different opinions, how it would work, and game designers have a lot of cool, fancy ideas, but sometimes it just won't work from a medical standpoint, or it's too critical from the message you want to communicate. So this is very, very important. Also, it keeps the vision of the project. Then you have developed this vision, and you have set up a goal for the project. It's important to have some people in charge who look at this vision is kept and not during the process of development changed. It often happens in normal game development teams also. This is not a typical problem with health games, but with so many different experts on board, I think the probability or chance is higher to get another way that wasn't planned earlier in the project. And yeah, who is responsible for the quality control? This is even more important than in the area of commercial games. To have studies afterwards or already during the development process to test the game if this is still on track regarding the goal, regarding the message you want to communicate and so on. So very, very important again to test the game during the development process. And yeah, the best of both worlds, of course, is that you want to achieve to bring experts from both sides together, have lively discussions, and then find a decision that works for both sides. It's sometimes quite difficult, but you should aim at that. And from our projects, these are not typical projects because they are mostly done by students in this case, over one semester, so 15 weeks, 16 weeks. I think it's quite similar. We have always research assistants who guide the students, but more in the process, not idea-driven. So we give them the opportunity to develop all their ideas on their own. We have external experts. Sometimes they meet them just a few weeks and then have Skype meetings or go visit them. And sometimes we have like a panel. In the case of Paper Ninja, we invited the students once a month to a panel with different game developers and medical experts, and then they got feedback from them. And it was a bit like those casting shows with panel setting up. It's a special situation for the students also to present their game, every time to pitch their game to the group, sometimes to completely new people. They haven't met earlier, and this turned out to be very fruitful from the discussion standpoint and from the whole development process. And in the case of Balance, we took the help of one professional game developer. We had some money, like 10,000 euros, which is not very much. We have a professional programmer to pay. And the 12 students, I think, 2.5 of them programmed to the logic, one interface, and all other students made the drawings and the graphical assets. So this was most of the work was going into this area. Yeah, money is always a critical point. When I just mentioned the 10,000 euros, it's quite nice to have, but it's not very much in terms of game development. Anyone who developed already commercial game knows that you can spend a lot more money on game development. So game development isn't cheap, and often we, as a university, we get approached by partners and say, hey, we have a fancy idea for a game in the area of serious health games, and then they are always shocked by how much this will cost. Even if we have students who work on this project collaborating with game studios, we're sometimes a bit cheaper, but most of the people are really surprised how much a game costs to develop. And if game development is already costs already a lot of money, then serious game development or health game development should cost more, because you have a lot of more testing, more experts to pay. And this is often a thing that people have don't get from the first point. And I think this is a very important lesson, not only for us as developers, but also for the people who for the clients, because if you want a real good game, and this costs a lot of money, and if you want to achieve something with this and transport a message or have impact on a certain topic, you have to spend even more money, because it's not only a game which is fun to play, but it should have another purpose. And yeah, the external expertise is mandatory. You cannot get this for free, so you have also put it in the budget planning and especially the quality control of our studies afterwards to prove if your game is working. This costs also a lot of money, and our experience is to put this in the pitch when you talk to your clients right from the beginning, not afterwards. If you want to make a study, this costs a few euros extra. This is it's not the best way to pitch this project. Technology. Most of the games I know, and not only the ones we developed, are on the PC platform, which is understandable because there are a lot of free tools, free engines. It's easy to get the development platform. If you have a console like the Wii from Nintendo or the Nintendo DS, you have to get developer kits, which is not that easy when you work together with Nintendo. Even as a commercial game developer, it's quite hard to get these, and it's quite costly. And so the PC is quite a good point to start with. Mobile phones or smartphones are getting more and more popular. And you got a lot of free development tools as well for these platforms. So this is also a good opportunity, and got a different engines and frameworks we all learned this morning. And I think there are a lot of things to pick from and make a choice at what level you want to enter if you're something more out of the box, like the game maker utility, or something where you're more freedom but also have a higher, you need higher skills of programming. For example, you take a Unity engine, so there's always an entry point to start with on different levels of expertise. And of course, a lot of questions around single player, multiplayer. If you want to do a multiplayer game with online mode, you need someone who has experience in network coding, setting up a platform, server platform, and this scales the project costs a lot. So it's often better to aim a bit lower at a smaller game, for example, with not so many options, and do it well instead of a game like 10 different playing modes and have an online mode and so on, but then have the problem to make this running at a quality that is will help this game to achieve its goal. And another point that is very interesting: a lot of games, also commercially distributed games, have now metrics and log file systems. So it's quite important also for our research that we had a lot of data from the games. We can compare with other testing data together with the medical scientists or psychologists, that we get feedback from the game, not only from the player themselves, but also from the game, and then align with sets of data to get as much out of it as we can. Distribution channels are also very interesting for health games. If you have a health game, you often want to distribute it for free, or to medical personnel, for example. It's an interesting question how to distribute it. We had, for example, one game we pitched with a health insurance, and they wanted to distribute it on a DVD. And nowadays, I think it's fairly easy to have digital distribution, which is much more cheaper. You don't have the need of a partner who prints all the DVDs. So a lot of questions surrounding the technology, which are very important and also have a high impact on the costs for your project. Research is very obvious that you have to look up what other people are doing, but it's always interesting also at a conference like this to also get to know other projects which are similar than the work you do, or get to know projects that are perhaps running for years and you never heard of. So it's very important to get to know the area you're working in, what did other people already do, not only with games but also with other, for example, books, web-based trainings, which may aim at a similar goal, but on another form of media. So it's always interesting to see how other people address the problem and try to cope with it. and of course what other kind of commercial games are popular within the target group, what theme, type of character is interesting for the kids of a certain age range, for example. So a lot of questions you can ask yourself and do a lot of research, which is also adds up to the costs when you're developing a game in this area. Yes, short summary on time. I think one of the most critical factors in health game development is really the communication between the different participants. Not only the game development team, it's often perhaps the people from the industry will support my experience. It's sometimes it's already difficult to bring graphic artists and programmers together and to have this project running and in a commercial game project. But it's even much more difficult to bring external experts from different areas, research areas together with game developers, because sometimes they address the same problem but in very different ways, and it takes a lot of communication to solve problems, to run all discussions, and but you should take the time. I think it's very important. All the people on board have to know what happens, what are the implications of certain game mechanics, or why you can't, for example, don't choose a certain character design. When we started the diabetes game, for example, our students drew a lot of concept arts for the characters, and there were a lot of comic manga style characters, and the psychologist went, no, too anorexia, too thin, which is not very good in the area of diabetes, for example, and students were redraw it again and again. This is very important, and this turns out at the end of the game this can work. Then you have a lot of work done for nothing, so I think it's very important right from the beginning to get all these points in the discussion and solve the problems. As much information about the context and target group, I think this is quite obvious. Clear responsibilities, who's in charge of what, and who makes the decisions in the area of game design and the game design process, who keeps the vision, and of course a careful choice of platform, technology, and so on. And of course user-centered design, that you get always back to your target group, do tests, bring in the prototypes, bring in questionnaires, do interviews and focus groups, and this on a regular basis. So every 2 or 3 weeks talk to the people who will play your game. And I think this wraps up my talk. If you're interested in any further information about the 2 games or any other thing, please contact me now or later or via email. Thanks a lot for listening.
Are there any questions?
Did I get it right that both games were developed for health insurance, or it was started?
The first game was started by the health insurance, and we developed the 10,000 euros came from the health insurance, but it's not much, and this again shows we're totally interested in this project, and we give you
as long as we don't have to pay for it.
And this was already difficult to get this 10,000 euros, and the prototype, and after the prototype testing, which was quite successful, so the 2 things worked, which we tried to achieve. And then people changed within the health insurance and said, we will come back to you. And this is also a thing that you have to convince everyone who's in charge of the money at the health insurance. And when people change, you have to start the process all over again. So we're now again in the dialogue with the health insurance about getting this from a prototype to a full product.
So what I learned from today, you need studies, you need results that can prove what your game will have as an effect. Therefore, you can argue, for example, with the health insurance, we will get the rate of children suffering from diabetes down by 10%, and that means so much cost, and that means
exactly.
Okay.
It's like the remission study, which was presented by Sandro. They did a clinical study with, I think, several hundred participants, and you need something like this to convince the people that this
and
saves.
That costs also.
And this costs also.
So
a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
I think the most important is how to bring the doctors in. What's the interest of the doctors to support your knowledge? Yeah? We as a game designer, or a programmer, or artist, we have now that experience first. Second, it's a long-term process. So students go and come and go. You can't see as it's well in the bachelor. Life, so it's just half a year and then they're away. So you invest a lot of time and well, how to make it a long-term process?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, in the balance project, it was about 2 semesters long, so 2 different groups. One group who did the game in about 15 weeks, and then we had the vacation in between, where the game programmer fixed some stuff and made this running for the study, which then took place in the next semester. So this was a 2-semester project, but the research assistants who guided the project then took over and did additional stuff together with the game company who worked on it. And but it's quite difficult, yeah, to keep the students along the project. Some of them wrote their special thesis about the project because they really enjoyed the project, so it was nice to see that some people stayed, but of course not everyone stayed, so it's quite difficult to have this team about several semesters. And to get the experts into the project is about the motivation. We cannot, as a university, give them money for contributing to the game, so we asked people at several hospitals, stations, and of course got a lot of negative feedback, but we found like 3 hospitals who supported us with the study and with all the guidance alongside the design process. So it was very lucky. I think it's just not typically, because it was about the contact of one of our professors from the social psychology who knew some of the psychologists at the LMU Munich, and there we got a good start from. But I think it's much more difficult when you have not the contacts and you have cold start getting people on board.
So very often someone who's doing research in this area is married to one doctor or something like that. That's a typical combination.
Yeah, but it's often like this. But I can completely understand, because it's, if you don't, if there's so much work and doctors are mostly known for that they work too much and not the opposite. So it's they have just if you have the time or the motivation to participate on this project.
Well, if you are doing such kind of paper prototypes, you need the expert so you need them all the time. Yeah. So this is a question I'm a little bit wondering how to get them in, how they could get enough benefit to support this process. Otherwise, we don't know what's our objective. Yeah. How should we measure whether we're good or not? We're not the medical doctors here.
Yeah. And the motivation for most of them was to look how this will develop, and then if this turns out to be good, that they use it at their station. And this was the intrinsic motivation for them.
Any more questions? Most of you have fallen asleep. Need another coffee? Okay, thank you very much.